Hello, I'm going to show you how to fake tab in Dorico. So I'm going to add first a solo player. This is an empty project. And I'm going to add an empty kit. This is what we use to fake the tab notation. We're going to use a percussion grid. I'll call this new kit base tab. Short name base. And we're going to add a few bass drums. You can use any instrument you want, I guess. I like to use bass drums for some reason. The playback isn't going to work anyway. Oops. Here we go. There we go, 4 bass drums. I'm going to change the names to the names of the strings. You only have to do this once. You don't have to create the percussion kit once, because you can export it and import it later on. If you don't want any staff labels, then you don't have to do this thing with the names, but since it's fairly quick and you can export the kit and import it later on, then there's no harm in doing it this one time. There we go. Now we have something looking like this. You have the name of the strings, and here you see the bar line extends past the strings, and I don't want that, so I go into engraving options, and under bar lines we switch to this setting. Only use protrusion if less than or equal to maximum. I don't know what the word protrusion means, but I understand the setting, at least. Let's select this one, hit apply, and then we have this. If you don't want the name of the strings, you can go into layout options, staves and systems, sorry, and do this. There we go. I'm going to change the clef into tab for string. I'll input a meter, and I like to add a bunch of bars. There we go. Now the first thing we want to do is hide the rests, and we can't normally hide rests in percussion staves by any of these known workarounds, like changing the opacity or the custom scale, because this is a percussion grid. However, we can hide notes. So if you enter a note, like this, you can hide the note, and if you mute it, then it will be the same thing as if you had tried to hide a rest. There we go. But I'm actually going to input instead of just using a whole note, I'm going to input the rhythm that I want, so the note spacing is correct. And depending on what you want, this may be or not be needed. Even for rests, I'm going to input notes, because we can't hide the rests, as we discussed earlier. There we go. I'll go ahead and hide these using the custom scale, not opacity but custom scale, for reasons that I'll show you later. There we go. The first method I'm going to use to fake tabulature is to use dynamic text, and to get it looking the way I want, I'll change the font style of the dynamic text font. The downside of this is that I can't write things like sub to piano or other things that require this dynamic text font, because I've changed it. So if that's something that you need to use, you have to use the other way that I'll show you later. You can still use dynamics like piano or forte, as you will see. There we go. And now, when in write mode, I'll add a dynamic to this rhythmic position. And I will change the prefix to the fret I want, and I'll have the hide the intensity marking. Then, in EngraveMode, I can move it to where I want. There we go. This is quite cumbersome, so I have written a script to make it slightly faster. I just have to run the script once. There we go. And then I can go to the console and I can input F for fret, parentheses, the fret I want, comma, the string I want. 4 is the E string and 1 is the G string. There we go. Go back to that window, change the rhythmic position, trying to talk and write at the same time. And I've added a key command for changing, switching between windows within the same application to do switch between the console and the main window. There we go. So this was a bit faster. The other way I'm going to show you system break is to use Shift X text, and I'll also show you how to get rhythmic notation of the tab while doing this. Here we go. I'll start by inputting the rhythm on the G string. I'll use the same. I'll use the same phrase. There we go. I'll flip the stems and I will hide the note heads. I can do this by changing the opacity to 0. That way we still get the stems showing. And we will use Shift X text this time. So I go into EngraveMode and change the paragraph style. I'll add a new paragraph style actually called tab. I'll base it on the default text. Still using bravura text at 9 points size. We want left hand alignment for this. It works better. There we go. And then in rhythmic note input mode, we just press Shift X to input text. We'll change the paragraph style to tab and start inputting the frets we want first. Hit escape to exit text input mode, and still if you hit escape to do this, it will stay in note input mode, which is a good thing. There we go. Because we used the rhythms, these notes are offset a bit, so we have to manually change these in EngraveMode. If you're not displaying the, there we go. If you're not using the, if you don't want the rhythmic notation, then all of them should end up on the same, at the same height. Are they right now? Yeah, I think so. There we go, and then we select all of them. Actually, in write mode, you can just select all of them like this. And fit text. Go back to engrave mode, and then we can hold Alt and Command. If you're on a Mac, I guess perhaps Control. Alt on Windows, I'm not sure. move them all to the G string, then deselect those that you want to move further. And if you just move them twice that way, they will actually end up at the correct position on the right string. And there we go. I said before that if you want, you can still use dynamics in this, even when we're faking tab using dynamics. However, if you try to input the dynamics where at the rhythmic position where we have a note, then it won't work, because as you see, you just change the dynamic at the position. However, you can input the dynamic at another rhythmic position and shift move it like this. However, you need to once more manually change this thing like this. One more thing I have to say is that when we use a percussion grid like this, the repeat bar lines are going to look a bit weird, as I'll show you, with 3 dots. This is something we have to live with at the moment, I guess. So I think this was everything that I wanted to show you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. There we go. So good luck and bye bye.